Dr. Peterson pushed Kiza away from the door of the VIP room at Mount Sinai Hospital. The gray-haired man in his impeccable white coat completely blocked the entrance, as if a 15-year-old teenager were a biological threat. 100 doctors couldn't cure the mafia boss's son. But the 15-year-old black daughter of a janitor, a medical genius, cured him instantly. And what happened next, no one will ever forget. "Get out of here, girl. This is no place for children." Inside the room, Tommy Marcelli, only 8 years old, had been dying for 3 weeks. The only son of feared mafia boss Vincent Marcelli, the boy had defeated all the specialists from 3 continents. Doctors from Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, all had failed. The boy was dying and nobody knew why. "My father has worked here for 20 years cleaning these hallways," Kiza responded calmly, holding a stack of medical books against her chest. "And I know all the patients on this floor better than most of the interns." Dr. Peterson laughed disdainfully. "Oh, of course. The janitor's little daughter is now a doctor. Go back to school, girl. Let the adults work." While he and his elite team went in circles, she had identified a pattern everyone had ignored. What the arrogant doctor didn't know was that Kiza had finished high school at 13, that she'd been reading medical journals since age 10, that her photographic mind had absorbed more medical knowledge in 5 years than he had learned in decades of privileged career. But above all, Doc Peterson didn't know that Kiza had been observing Tommy's case for the past 15 days. "The boy doesn't have a rare disease," Kiza murmured, almost to herself. "He has thallium poisoning. The symptoms are classic." "What did you say?" Dr. Peterson asked, turning abruptly. At that moment, a nurse ran out of the room. "Doctor, he's having another seizure. Blood pressure has dropped significantly." Nothing that would matter to someone who's already decided a 15-year-old black girl can't know more than you. Through the half-open door, Kiza saw Vincent Marcelli, a man who controlled half the city's ports, crying over the small, fragile body of his son. Beside the bed, a dozen doctors moved in total panic. But what no one in that elite hospital imagined was that Kiza hadn't spent recent days simply observing. She had been preparing for this exact moment when their arrogance and prejudice would clash with the raw reality that sometimes genius comes wrapped in forms society prefers to ignore. 3 weeks, Kiza thought. 3 weeks of suffering that could have been avoided if someone had the courage to listen to a girl who doesn't look like them. Dr. Peterson didn't just ignore Kiza's words. He made sure to humiliate her publicly. And now, as the son of one of the most dangerous men in the country was dying slowly, Kiza knew she had exactly one chance to prove they had underestimated the wrong person. "Security," he shouted down the hallway. "Get this girl out of here. Children can't circulate in the emergency ward." 2 burly security guards approached, but Kiza remained motionless, her gaze fixed on the door where Tommy was dying. "What an insolent girl," muttered Dr. Harrison, the most respected pediatric cardiologist on the East Coast. "Someone should teach that person manners." "You're going to let a child die out of pride," she said calmly, her voice echoing through the hallway filled with doctors and nurses. Kiza knew that tone well. It was the same one she heard walking through university hallways, where she had started studying medicine at 14, thanks to a scholarship for the gifted. The same condescending looks from professors who questioned her presence there. The same stifled giggles from classmates who whispered about quotas and racial favoritism. The word person was pronounced as if it were something dirty in his mouth. But what none of them knew was that Kiza wasn't there by chance that night. For 2 weeks, since Tommy Marcelli had been admitted, she had been meticulously observing every test, every result, every wrong medical decision. "My daughter," James had whispered one night, finding her hunched over toxicology books in the staff break room. "You can't keep risking yourself like this. If they find out." While her father James cleaned rooms during the night shift, she studied medical records abandoned on tables, memorized every detail, every ignored symptom. "Dad, there's a child dying because these doctors are too arrogant to consider possibilities outside their elitist manuals," Kiza had responded, her eyes shining with a determination James recognized from when she was small. Dr. Peterson quickly interjected. "Mr. Marcelli, please don't listen to a disturbed teenager. She's clearly seeking attention. Our specialists have performed every possible test." Now, as security guards hesitated to touch her after all, she was the daughter of a respected employee. Vincent Marcelli stumbled out of the room. The powerful mafia boss looked like he had aged decades in 3 weeks. His reddened eyes from so much crying met Kiza's. "You," he said in a hoarse voice. "You said something about poisoning." "Your specialists," Kiza interrupted, with a voice that cut the air like a knife, "have performed tests for over 200 rare diseases. They've spent $500,000 on experimental tests, but they haven't done a simple urine test to detect heavy metals, because they believe poisoning is movie stuff, not something for rich families." The silence in the hallway was deafening. Vincent Marcelli approached Kiza, completely ignoring the doctors surrounding him. "Keep talking." Dr. Peterson laughed nervously. "Mr. Marcelli, thallium is used in rat poison. That's absurd. Hair loss in specific patterns, seizures that always start in the extremities, intense abdominal pain that worsens with food but improves with fasting." Kiza listed without hurry. "And most obvious, the blue-gray line on the gums that you all ignored because it only appears in thallium intoxication." "That's why it's perfect," Kiza interrupted. "Who suspects rat poison in a millionaire family? It's practically undetectable if you don't know what to look for. And you," she looked directly at Dr. Peterson, "were too busy protecting your egos to look for it." "Mr. Marcelli, that's a waste of valuable time," Dr. Peterson began. Vincent looked into the girl's eyes for a long moment. In them he saw not just intelligence, but also a controlled fury he recognized, the fury of someone who had been underestimated all their life. "Do the test," Vincent said to the doctors. The urine test result arrived in 47 minutes. 47 minutes that changed the dynamics of that elite hospital forever. "Do the test," Vincent roared. And the entire room fell silent. Dr. Peterson held the paper with trembling hands. His eyes reread the numbers for the 4th time, as if reality could be changed by the force of denial. The silence in the hallway was deafening. 12 specialist doctors with degrees from universities that cost more than Kiza's house stared at a black teenager who had diagnosed in minutes what they couldn't in 3 weeks. "Thallium levels 15 times above normal," he murmured in an almost inaudible voice. "Acute thallium intoxication. Cause of progressive organ failure. Impossible," Dr. Harrison whispered, snatching the paper from Peterson's hands. "A girl! A girl! This can't be true." Vincent Marcelli said not a word. He simply approached Kiza and knelt before her, a gesture that made everyone present hold their breath. The most feared man on the East Coast was on his knees, before a teenager. "You saved my son," he said, his voice charged with emotion. "How can I repay you?" Kiza looked into the powerful man's eyes and saw not a criminal but a desperate father. Dr. Peterson exploded. "Enough. A minor can't investigate anything in this hospital. This is medical and legal territory." "Let me finish what I started," she responded calmly. "Thallium doesn't appear in the body by itself. Someone is deliberately poisoning Tommy, and I'm going to discover who." "Medical territory." Kiza turned slowly toward him, and for the first time since arriving, she smiled. It wasn't a sweet or shy smile. It was the dangerous smile of someone about to completely destroy another person's credibility. "Dr. Peterson, where did you study?" "Interesting. What year did you graduate?" "Harvard Medical School," he responded automatically, chest puffed with pride. Dr. Peterson's face went through several shades of red. 1998. Kiza pulled out her phone, and within seconds was showing the screen to everyone. Because here, on the Harvard Medical School website, in the 1998 toxicology curriculum, thallium is listed as the 3rd most common cause of poisoning in children. First page of the manual. Introductory chapter. The silence was now deadly. And here, Kiza continued, sliding her finger across the screen. In the Journal of Pediatric Emergency Medicine from March 2019, an article you co-authored on diagnostic protocols in pediatric emergencies. Page 27, line 15. In cases of progressive neurological symptoms without apparent cause, always consider heavy metal poisoning, especially thallium. "So, explain to me, Dr. Peterson." Kiza continued, her voice sharp as a knife. "How is it possible that a Harvard graduate who helped draft protocols on these types of cases didn't consider thallium in 3 weeks of treatment?" incompetence, or negligence. Before anyone could respond, James Carter appeared at the end of the hallway, pushing a cleaning cart. Seeing his daughter surrounded by all those doctors and the feared Vincent Marcelli, his face paled. "Dad," Kiza called calmly, "I need your help." James hesitated, looking nervously at the doctors who had always treated him like invisible furniture. But something in his daughter's voice, a determination he'd known since she was small, made him walk toward them. James looked at Vincent, who nodded gravely. "Make a list," Vincent said. "Everyone, doctors, nurses, support staff, visitors, everyone. You've been cleaning the rooms in this wing for 20 years. You know every corner, every routine, every person who comes and goes. Someone is systematically poisoning Tommy Marcelli. I need you to help me discover who has constant access to his room." "What do you need, daughter?" "Dr. Peterson?" Vincent interrupted with a low, dangerous voice. "You just failed spectacularly at diagnosing that someone was trying to murder my son. I suggest you shut up before I completely lose patience." Dr. Peterson tried to intervene again. "Mr. Marcelli, this is medical protocol, not criminal investigation." As the doctors retreated in humiliated silence, Kiza observed each one carefully. Peterson with his trembling hands, Harrison avoiding eye contact, the head nurse who couldn't stop sweating. But it was Dr. Miranda Walls, the pediatrician in charge of the night shift, who caught her attention. The woman had remained silent during the entire confrontation, but her eyes showed something Kiza recognized immediately. It wasn't shame about the medical error, it was anger. Anger directed specifically at her. "Dad," Kiza whispered as they walked down the hallway, "I need you to do something very important. In the coming days, watch Dr. Walls especially. Note everything she does, everywhere she goes, everyone she talks to." "Why her specifically?" "Because while everyone else was embarrassed or confused, she was furious. Not with me for humiliating them, but with me for saving Tommy." James stopped. In 2 decades cleaning that hospital, he had learned to read people very well, and now, looking into his 15-year-old daughter's determined eyes, he realized she wasn't just trying to save a child's life. She was about to unmask something much bigger. "Kiza," James whispered, "what have you really discovered?" She smiled. But this time, it was a smile that combined a teenager's innocence with the terrifying intelligence of a mind that had seen patterns where others saw only coincidences. "She's carrying out a series of murders, specifically targeting the heirs of influential families, and now that I know, she'll try to silence me before I expose everything." "Dad, Tommy isn't the first rich child who almost died in this hospital, without a clear diagnosis in the last 2 years. And if I'm right about what I suspect, Dr. Walls isn't just trying to kill one child." Kiza stopped at the window overlooking the VIP parking lot, where luxury cars from powerful families lined up while their children fought for their lives on the upper floor. "What are we gonna do?" James asked, his voice heavy with paternal concern. Kiza looked one last time out the window where Dr. Walls was walking quickly toward a black car, talking intensely on the phone. Understanding hit James like lightning. His daughter hadn't just saved a life. She had uncovered a conspiracy that could shake the foundations of American high society. And now a serial killer knew that a 15-year-old teenager was after her. Big mistakes. We'll give her exactly what she expects from an insolent girl. We'll act like irresponsible teenagers who got in over their heads. And when she completely lowers her guard, convinced we're just kids playing detective, she turned to her father, and James saw in his daughter's eyes the same fierce determination that led her to learn medicine on her own, graduate and diagnose what Harvard doctors couldn't. Then we'll show the entire city that sometimes justice comes wrapped in forms that the privileged prefer to ignore until it's too late to do anything but pay the price. Dr. Miranda Walls thought she was dealing with a troublesome teenager when Kiza began asking childish questions about other mysterious hospital cases. She thought she had the situation under control when she suggested the girl focus on her studies instead of playing detective. "Dad, did you install the cameras where I asked?" Kiza whispered to James as he cleaned the hallway at 2 a.m., 3 days after her initial discovery. "She won't notice anything until it's too late," Kiza interrupted, checking the device. "Dr. Walls thinks she's dealing with a black girl who's too curious for her own good. She doesn't imagine I've spent 72 hours documenting her every movement." In the fourth-floor supply closet and in the medication preparation room. James confirmed, discreetly passing a small recorder to his daughter. But daughter, if she discovers... What Dr. Walls also didn't know was that Kiza had hacked the hospital's internal system using passwords she'd observed doctors typing for years of social invisibility. Nor did she know that Kiza had systematically correlated all sudden deaths of rich children in the last 2 years with Walls's night shifts. 7 children. 7 powerful families who had tragically lost their heirs to rare undiagnosed diseases, all of them under Dr. Walls's direct care during critical episodes. Dr. Walls, Kiza approached the pediatrician timidly the next afternoon, perfectly playing the role of an impressed teenager. Can I ask you some questions about medicine? I'm thinking about studying pediatrics when I grow up. Walls paused. What exactly do you mean? Wals's eyes narrowed slightly, but she sketched a condescending smile. Sure, honey, but maybe you should focus on finishing high school first before dreaming so high. It's just that I'm curious about those rare cases you treat here, like Tommy's. It must be frustrating when children die and you can't discover why. Sure, doctor. Sorry for saying silly things. Dr. Walls's face hardened imperceptibly. Young lady, I suggest you stop asking unnecessary questions and go home. Hospitals aren't places for teenagers' morbid curiosity. Oh, just that I've read about other similar cases in recent years. Senator Morrison's daughter, Judge Thompson's son. Kiza pretended to consult innocent notes. They all had similar symptoms before dying. What a strange coincidence, right? Kiza lowered her head submissively, but secretly checked that the recorder in her pocket had captured the threatening tone Walls had just used. We have a problem, Walls said on the phone, not knowing Kiza was recording from inside the supply closet. The janitor's daughter is asking questions about previous cases. She mentioned specific names. That night, Dr. Walls made her fatal mistake. Thinking she had successfully intimidated a presumptuous girl, she called her contact. The voice on the other end was cold, calculating. Does she know something or is she just groping in the dark? It's hard to say. She's a smart girl. Smarter than she should be. But she's black. Poor, an employee's daughter. No one will believe her over me. Still, we can't take risks. The operation is very lucrative. Families pay millions to eliminate problematic heirs and redirect inheritances. A curious teenager can't destroy years of work. What do you suggest? Walls asked. Accident. As always, accidental medication overdose. Teenagers are known for experimenting with drugs. It will be a tragedy, but not a surprise. Kiza almost dropped the recorder. Dr. Walls wasn't just killing children at random. She was being paid by members of the families themselves to murder inconvenient heirs. The next morning, Kiza called an emergency meeting with Vincent Marcelli, Dr. Peterson, and hospital administration. Kiza had everything she needed, not just recorded confessions, but also the names of contractors, methods, and financial motivations. But now, she had less than 24 hours before Walls tried to kill her. Understood. I'll take care of it. When Dr. Walls entered the conference room, expecting to find a scared teenager being reprimanded by authorities, she found something very different. Vincent Marcelli seated at the head of the table with a deadly expression, 2 corporate lawyers, the hospital's chief administrator, and Kiza, calm as death with a laptop open before her. I've discovered who poisoned Tommy, she announced calmly, and I've discovered much more. Dr. Walls, Kiza said softly, would you like to hear an interesting recording I made last night? That's illegal. Recording without consent. Walls stammered. The color disappeared from Walls's face as her own voice filled the room, discussing contract murders with precise clinical details. Curiously, one of the lawyers interrupted, recordings of criminal activities are admissible when documenting a conspiracy to commit murder, especially the murder of minors. Vincent leaned forward, his eyes fixed on Walls with predatory intensity. You tried to kill my son for money. It wasn't personal, Walls whispered, her mask of medical respectability finally falling. It was just business. The families want... I don't care about your excuses, Vincent interrupted. I care about justice. He turned to Kiza. For the first time since they'd met, he smiled at her with genuine admiration. 15-year-old girl, accomplished in 1 week what detectives and federal investigators haven't accomplished in 2 years. Kiza Carter not only saved my son, She saved all the children she still planned to kill. By the way, Dr. Walls, Kiza said, closing the laptop with satisfaction, those childish questions I asked you yesterday. Each one was strategically designed to get you to incriminate yourself. Because sometimes the best way to catch a criminal is to make them believe they're smarter than their victims. Dr. Walls tried to stand, but 2 security guards already blocked the door. Her career, her reputation, her freedom, everything had been destroyed by a teenager she'd underestimated. Because she only saw the color of her skin and social class, never her intelligence or determination. As Walls was escorted in handcuffs down the hallways where she had operated with impunity for years, one question hung in the air. How many other Dr. Wallses occupied positions of power, protected by the same arrogance that finally caused her downfall? And how many other Keyses were being ignored, their voices silenced before they even had the chance to save lives? 6 months later, Dr. Walls faced her trial on the pages of national newspapers. Elite doctor convicted of serial murders, read the headlines, while she, dressed in orange prison uniform, cried before cameras that once treated her as a medical celebrity. 7 millionaire families were publicly exposed for hiring the murders of their own children. Senators resigned. Judges were arrested. A scandal that shook the foundations of American high society. All because a black teenager had the courage to ask questions Harvard doctors preferred to ignore. James Carter had been promoted to hospital operations supervisor with a salary that allowed him to buy his first house. Kiza Carter, age 16, today received a full scholarship to Harvard Medical School, becoming the youngest person accepted into the program. Announced the national news anchor. The young woman who saved Tommy Marcelli and unmasked a murder network also created a foundation for low-income gifted children. Vincent Marcelli kept his word. The Carter Foundation now operated in 5 states, offering free medical education to brilliant young people the traditional system ignored. Dr. Peterson lost his medical license and worked as a pharmaceutical representative, explaining to anyone who would listen how a girl without experience had destroyed his career. No one had patience for his complaints. You know what impresses me most? Vincent told Kiza during a visit to the hospital, where she now worked as a junior consultant. You could have come to me at any time to ask for revenge against those who humiliated you, but you chose to build something bigger. Kiza smiled, watching Tommy play in the park that had been built in the pediatric ward. The boy was healthy, strong and alive because she had decided to act instead of accepting being silenced. The best revenge against people who try to belittle you isn't to destroy them, Kiza reflected. It's to show them they were completely wrong about who you really are. Dr. Walls served life in prison. Her reputation was destroyed, her degrees revoked. But Kiza rarely thought about her. She was too busy saving lives and changing a system that almost allowed a child to die because arrogant adults refused to listen to an intelligent teenager. Today, hospitals across the country apply protocols requiring consideration of poisoning in undiagnosed cases. The Carter Protocol has saved hundreds of lives in recent months. And Tommy Marcelli grew strong and healthy, always remembering Dr. Kiza, who proved that sometimes heroes come in forms society prefers to ignore until it's too late to do anything but applaud. The teenager Harvard doctors tried to silence now had her own chair reserved at the same university. Dr. Walls tried to kill children for money, but ended up creating the person who would revolutionize pediatric medicine forever. Sometimes justice doesn't fall from the sky, Kiza said during her high school graduation speech at 16, before an audience that included Vincent Marcelli, her proud father, and Tommy in the front row. Sometimes you have to be brave enough to take it with your own hands, and smart enough to use it in ways that transform the world. When I first arrived here, Kiza began, her voice steady and confident. I was the youngest student in the program's history. I was also one of the few black women in my cohort. Many of you know my story, the girl who diagnosed thallium poisoning when experienced doctors couldn't. But what you don't know is what happened after the headlines faded. 3 years had passed since that fateful night at Mount Sinai Hospital. Kiza Carter, now 18, stood before a lecture hall filled with over 300 medical students at Harvard Medical School. The same institution that had once seemed like an impossible dream was now her home, though the journey hadn't been without its challenges. Kiza's true revenge wasn't destroying those who underestimated her, It was becoming someone so extraordinary that they spent the rest of their lives explaining how they missed the opportunity to recognize her genius. After Dr. Walls was convicted, Kiza continued, we discovered something even more disturbing. The hospital system had received complaints about unusual patient deaths for nearly 5 years, but those complaints came from nurses, orderlies, and support staff, people whose voices were systematically dismissed because of their position in the hospital hierarchy. Sound familiar? In the front row, Tommy Marcelli sat next to his father. The boy who had almost died at 8 was now 11, healthy and vibrant. With a keen interest in chemistry that Kiza had personally nurtured, Vincent had kept his promise in ways that extended far beyond financial support. He had become a fierce advocate for educational reform, using his considerable influence to break down barriers that kept talented young people from opportunities. She clicked to the next slide, showing a photograph of a small clinic in a neighborhood not unlike the one where she grew up. This is the Carter Community Health Center, the first of 12 we've opened across the country. But this story isn't just about buildings or scholarships. It's about the people those institutions almost missed.